Hello again.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, really good.
By the way, we need to remind everyone to enter the time
Yes, I was planning on doing that tomorrow. Do you want me to send it today?
whenever, but you in particular,
Yes.
give me.
Yeah.
I'm going to let David in
Okay. I'm
um, because he's. David, can you hear us? Maybe. Don't know why he came in as a guest.
Can you see that okay?
I can. Thank you. I'm Nicole. I'm tempted to let people in so they're in instead of they just getting a spinning. I don't know. What do you think?
Sorry, it takes me forever to unmute on here. That's
Or do you like
that's
to wait until 5 minutes before?
yeah, we usually do a few minutes before,
Okay. They're
and then
just,
yeah. Yeah, I mean you can let them in if you want to. That's totally up to you. Whatever you want to do.
wow. Okay, I'm gonna admit them all for a moment and I'll just say hi. We'll start in about 7 minutes. Admitting them. For those of you who are just joined us, thank you for coming. We'll be starting in about, well, 7, 8 minutes. Calista and Nicole, and for the rest of the group as they're coming to join us, maybe we should start thinking, how can we like have some music or something for those who come early? Maybe they're like, no, please don't. Just a thought.
I don't even know how to do that.
I don't either, but I'm sure we could figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing. It's like we're sitting here in silence. We got all these wonderful people joining with us because they are just on top of it. And it's like, maybe we should entertain them a little bit more. Or maybe not.
Well,
Just
we can look into that.
I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds before we start. Thank you, everyone who's joining with us right now. It's our October USBE LEA data meeting. Again, we'll be starting in just a few seconds. And Stacy, if you would like to start singing, go for it. For those who are just joining us, we were wondering, should should we for those who come early, should we entertain them somehow with music? Anyway, it was just us musing as we're getting ready to start. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us at our October LEA data meeting. Again, appreciate all that you guys do. We know that your time is valuable, and really appreciate all of you who come and having from, basically come listen to this information and share your feedbacks with us. So if we can move on to the next slide. As everyone should be aware, please mute your microphones, raise your hand if you have a question, or go ahead and put that into the chat as we're moving along. Let's go ahead and go to the agenda. Today, we're going to talk about special education updates, the new data elements request, the October 1 submission feedback, updates from CNP, stamp assessment, Utah Fits All updates, the graduation rate for the cohort 2025 updates, and important dates for December 1st, Utrecht's data submission. And with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And Malia, I believe you're here.
Yes, I'm here. My video's not wanting to start. There it goes. Okay.
Hey.
Okay, go ahead and go to the first slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. There must be a delay. Yes, thank you. Okay. So every year I come and give you an update to how we did with updating dropout data. And so this is what our numbers looked like this year. When I first looked at this data and sometime in early to mid-September, we had about 2,200 students that would have shown up as dropouts. And after all your hard work, we got that down to a little over 1,200. So about a 44% drop. So thanks everybody for all your hard work on that. It makes a big difference. Next slide, please. Okay, and then the next item is the alternate assessment participation threshold, also known as the 1% cap required by ESSA. You'll go to the next slide. Okay, so the rule, which started in 2018, is that we as a state have a 1% cap on the percent of students statewide who can be tested with an alternate assessment. However, LEAs don't have a cap. So as an individual LEA, if you go over 1%, there's no law against that. But as a state, we have to have any LEAs who go over 1% submit a justification letter of why you went over 1%. So we have looked at the data we don't have the language arts data yet, but math and science we've looked at, and language arts and math are usually very closely aligned. And science is just different because of the third graders not taking science for the most part. So we've looked at that, and we have 54 LEAs that are over 1%. And so those notification letters, if you're one of those 54 LEAs, are going to be sent out here sometime in November. And then you'll have a justification letter will be due in January. And part of that justification letter is there's supposed to be a projection of what your 2026 alternate assessment rate is going to be. So go to the next slide, please. And so that's where you come in, the data managers, data specialists. So your special ed director, if you're one of those 54 LEAs, will probably, hopefully, come to you for help analyzing your current year data to try to figure out what your projected alternate assessment rate is going to be. And you'll need to do that for each subject area, math, science, and language arts. There's also documents that your special ed director is going to have to collect and submit to UPIPs. And so they may need your help with some of that documentation as well. And the notification letters will get sent to your special ed director. And I'll get to that, Del Rey, on the next slide. If we'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the calculation, like I said, separate. You have to do the calculation separately for each subject area, math, science, language arts. For language arts and math, it's grades 3 through 10. And for science, it's grades 4 through 10. The numerator is all students who you expect to test with the alternate assessment. So DLM, students who you expect to be DLM participants. Students who you expect to participate enough to get a valid proficiency level assigned. So if you think they should go to DLM, but then they're going to probably be opted out, then you do not include them in your projections. The denominator is all students who you expect to test. So that would be RISE, DLM, Utah Aspire Plus, in all of those grade levels, who you expect to test all the way through, get enough of the test done that they're going to get a valid proficiency level assigned. So again, if you expect that they'll, even though they're eligible for RISE, Utah Aspire Plus, if you expect that they're going to be opted out, or if you have reason to suspect they're going to refuse a test or whatever other you might have information to make an educated guess on who's going to ultimately end up being in your denominator. Use your experience with your data set from your students to project the number that you think are going to be in the denominator, number that you think are going to be in the numerator, and that's how the projections will work. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is what the alternate assessment rates have looked like in the recent 5 years. And so as you can see, they've been going up every year by roughly a 0.5 percentage point. And we don't have language arts yet, but you can see language arts and math are usually really closely aligned. Math is usually a teeny bit higher than language arts. So we're probably going to have any LEA who's over in math is probably also going to be over in language arts. Next slide, please. Oh, and then of course the big news is that we as a state are over this year. So I'll go into that in some upcoming slides. Okay, and then like I said, there's 54 LEAs that are going to have to do those justification letters this year. As you can see in this data, that rise in the alternate assessment rates has coincided with a rise in the number of LEAs that have to do these justification letters each year. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the ESSA rule on it, or I'll have some snippets of it. I won't have the whole rule. But basically, here's where it says the state may not exceed 1% of total number of students in the state who are assessed with alternate assessment. And the state must require that any LEA that was over 1% has to submit that justification. And then we have to provide appropriate oversight. So there's monitoring visits that occur also as part of this process. After the justification letters are submitted, monitoring decisions will be made. Next slide, please. Okay, and so this part, we actually don't qualify for this. So this says that states who anticipate going over the cap, which last year, based on last year's data, we weren't over it yet, but we had pretty good idea based on our trends that we were going to go over this year. And so we anticipated we were going to go over the cap, but we do not qualify to apply for a waiver. So we did not apply for the waiver. In order to apply for a waiver, we have to have 95% participation, and we don't. So, so we didn't apply for a waiver. And the waiver, nonetheless, we are doing all the things that, other than the participation rate, would qualify us for a waiver. So as you read through this, even though you know, we can't qualify for the waiver, these things that are highlighted in here are the things that we're going to do, because we want to be in compliance with everything that we can, even though we can't comply with enough of it to be granted a waiver. Next slide, please. Okay, and so this is the participation rates based on EdFacts data, and this 1% cap, the rate is based on EdFacts data. EdFacts has slightly different rules for the participation calculations than our state accountability does. State accountability opt-out doesn't go in the denominator for participation rates, but for EdFacts opt-out does go in the denominator for participation rates. And so this is what our math and science participation rates are for all students and for students with disabilities. As you can see, they range in about that 88, 89% rate. So, so we don't meet that 95% participation requirement. Slide, please. Okay, and so here are the consequences for not meeting the 1% threshold. So they have, it kind of goes in a level of severity, increases as you're over 1% more years. So the first consequence, this one listed here, would apply to us if we could have applied for a waiver. And since we don't meet the criteria to get a waiver, we just skip by this one altogether. We skip right to the next one. If you go to next slide, please. Okay, so this is where we are now this year. So the consequence is part of, there's a condition put on our Title I Part A grant award. And as part of that condition, we have to submit a plan to come into compliance with the 1% cap. And then submit data via EdFacts, which we do anyway. So yeah, so we'll be working on that plan this year, and a lot of that is going to involve some additional steps that we'll be doing with LEAs, and I'll probably be talking about this subject in every data meeting from here on out, with updates on what's going on, and we're developing the process as we go, so figuring stuff out as we go. So. Next slide, please. Okay, consequence 3, this is possibly what's going to happen to us next year if we're still over 1% next year. Next slide, please. And then a longer term possibility in a couple years if we still don't get back under 1%. Next slide, please. And I will tell you that there are a bunch of states that, so we didn't, in that first table you saw, we've never been over 1%. We started out a bit under 1%. Other states started out well above 1%. And they've been bringing their rates down. And there are states that have managed, who started out above 1%, who have managed to get their rates down below 1%. So we'll be looking to a lot of what those states have been doing, and trying to see if we can apply a lot of some of those same things. So this slide right here shows you, this might help with your projections. This shows you our October 1 data. If we look at the number of students who are reported as a 1% kiddo, a student with a significant cognitive disability, we look at that and then divide it by the overall population. And then we do the same thing in December, and then at year end, you can see that the year end rate tends to be 1/10 of a percentage point or more higher than what the October rate is. So you might take that into consideration when you're doing your projections. So like if you have you had 10 kiddos who were 1% as of October 1, then you might take an educated guess based on these trends that you might not end up having 11 kiddos who end up being in your numerator as at the time of testing at year end. So just something to take into consideration, and then of course weigh it against your own experience with the way your LEA's enrollment fluctuates throughout the year. Next slide, please. Okay, and then here's another slide, kind of just looking at data, it just a little bit differently. Those three rates, student with significant cognitive disability rates at the 3 different points in time, comparing it to our math alternate assessment rate. And so you can see that the math alternate assessment rate usually ends up being closer to what that year end 1% enrollment rate is. And then usually about a 1/10 of a percentage point higher. So if our trend continues this year like it has in the past years, we'll probably end up this year with an alternate assessment rate of about 1.1%, which is the opposite direction of where we need to go to not end up at that higher tier of consequence next year. So we really need to take this seriously. Next slide, please. Okay, and then here are some resources where you can find more information. Next slide, please. And if you have questions, Tracy Gooley is really the expert on this. I can help a lot with your data questions. But if you have questions about eligibility for alternate assessments and monitoring, and the justification letters, things like that. Tracy Gooley is your go-to person. And she, between the two of us, we plan on doing trainings and updates on this in this meeting, the AD meeting, and the special ed directors meetings on a fairly ongoing basis. So, and I believe that's all I have. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
And well, did we answer the questions in the chat? I
Yeah.
think you did most of them.
There were only 2 and I answered them both.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
New data element request, just sharing, we pulling this from the agenda. I don't think there's anything else beyond this slide, but just know that Darren Nelson is currently working with the Utah State Board, he still works at the Utah State Board of Education, but he's been assigned to help out with the I can't think of the name, the Utah School of the Deaf and Blind, and they're looking for a data element component where if an individual is receiving services from a specialist in your school, a way to track that. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I think we can go to the next slide. We are. Okay. Calista, is this yours or is this Riley?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we have typically just given LEAs some data after a finalized submission to go over how it went or if there were any issues to bring up, and also to get LEA feedback for various things. So the deadline for this year's October 1 finalize submission was on Monday, October 6th. That was due to the 5th being on the weekend. And all but 6 LEAs met that deadline, but those 6 did finalize that day. It was just later than 5 p.m. And that was due to, various technical issues. Submission times, as I'm sure everyone experienced, were very long. So we appreciate your patience with that and making that work. We also had some LEAs that needed to refinalize. In addition to those 6, we had others that needed to refinalize past 5 p.m. and that was just due to data issues and also related to the long submission times. But nobody went past the 6th, so we were still able to get everything finalized. So that first thing on the 7th, IT could run their ETL process, and then our team data and statistics did an audit of that process, and then IT finished putting everything into the production databases by October 10th. The reason that we share all this with you is just some people, I think, don't understand that after the finalized deadline, there's a lot of steps that have to happen until we can actually use the data, and also to explain why we have the deadlines in place, because a lot of that hinges on us getting the data to other people who need it for other things. So it was available for official use just yesterday, and that was when we did a public press release of the October 1 enrollment data. And just for your awareness, our finance at USBE were given the data on October 14th, and then they presented that to the CDC during that week of the 15th. And as I said, now all of that data is available for internal and public use. And we did put the most recent enrollment report up on the website. So you can go to our data and statistics report page if you're interested in looking at that. All right, next slide. These are just some common issues that we noticed across the board. So we just thought we would address them in case this happens again in December, so you kind of know how to handle it. Finalizing a wrong submission, that tends to happen every finalized period. So just pay attention to that submission status in the top left. It needs to show as completed, and talking to some people this time around, they didn't even realize that it's pretty small, but they didn't even realize that was there on the Utrecht's overview. So it's in the top left corner. If it shows queued, that means that it's too early, and basically you need to wait. And so that's a common problem, because if you press the finalize button when it's still queued, either you'll get an error or you'll finalize the wrong data that you were intending to. The error that comes up a lot of times, it says invalid batch. So we get that question a lot. Basically what that means is that you just need to wait, and you should be able to hit the finalize button again without resubmitting. If you get an actual error in the finalize box, that is different. But if you get that invalid batch error, you should be able to just wait and then still finalize that same submission. And we always try to keep track of these things, and just to be helpful, we're not trying to bother anybody, or but we will email if we notice an LEA finalized too early, just because we want to make sure that you got the data in that you were intending to. Sometimes if you finalize the wrong submission, you may have made changes to your data that are important, or you may have had fatal errors show up. And so that can really affect your data. So that's the only reason we email. We're not trying to like get anyone in trouble. We're just trying to give you a heads up that, hey, we noticed this. And so that's the intention of that. Next slide, please. Another issue we noticed, I kind of started talking about this, is finalizing with errors. Again, it's really up to your LEA when you're done. So if you choose to finalize with fatal errors, that is up to you. When we email, it's simply a courtesy. We're just trying to say we noticed this. If you didn't mean to do this, then we would recommend you fixing this and refinalizing. A lot of times, it is we'll get the response from an LEA that they did not want that fatal error. And sometimes LEAs respond, and we appreciate that yes, we are aware of that and we're keeping it. And that's fine too. But we're never trying to, be annoying when we email you about that. It's the main objective is because fatal errors block student records. And so if that student had membership and is school of record, then they're not going to get into UTREX if they have a fatal error, whether it's level 1 or level 2. So again, we're just trying to help you, and we're not trying to be annoying. So one tip, if it's happening to you and we're emailing you and you did not mean to finalize with fatal errors, is to just make sure that UTREX overview has updated. And again, that can be a process of waiting. And it was especially bad this past submission and even at year end. It just takes a long time. Cliff would have to speak more to that part of it. I know that they are looking at solutions for that, so that it is not so long. But that is the main problem we're seeing when LEA is finalized with fatal errors, is that overview just has not updated yet. All right, next slide. Another issue, we didn't get a lot of people asking this time, but we did still get a few. Just to re-announce, it was presented in 2024 April, that the deadline for our finance team to present the data moved up earlier. And so because of that, they actually put it in board rule and legislation that we had to adjust the October 1 submission date. And if you were around at that point, you'll remember there was a compromise. So that's why it is October 5th. But because of that, USBE had to make the stipulation that if we made it the 5th, there's no extensions, no updates past that point. And so anyone that found issues in their finalized data after that they finalized and after the deadline was passed, unfortunately, we can't do anything about that in October. And so just a reminder that the best solution is to try and get it right. If for some reason something is not finalized correctly, then we would ask that you fix those issues for December and year end. And we're happy to talk through that more with you if you have questions. Next slide. This issue is new, and Cliff's going to talk more about this. UFA students, the Utah Fits All Scholarship students, it's like I said, it's a new thing, so we expect that there's going to be some kinks along the way. But we had a lot of LEAs reaching out about either how to report those students, or if a student got reported incorrectly and then they got a letter and notified by a parent. So what we're saying right now is we're not going back and fixing anything that was finalized. Cliff can talk more about that later, but we're not going to go back and adjust membership or things on the students that were in your October 1 count. Going forward, just know that those records should be reported in School 993. and that they need to be reported as school of record no and zero membership. That is the best way to avoid any problems. All right, next slide. Okay, and before turning the timer to Stephanie, I'm gonna look in the chat real quick. Okay, is the state doing anything to try and rectify the length of time? So I am not on the UTREX team, but I believe the answer is yes. We have talked about this and tried to definitely make it better. So Cliff will have to respond more specifically about that, but I know the answer is yes, they are trying to make that collection and processing time shorter. It was painful for everyone. Okay, and yes, that Stephanie answered that last question, and then Cliff put something in the chat. Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions that they feel did not get answered? I don't see a link to the report that's making rounds in the media. Will you please? Yes, I can put that in the chat. Okay, Stephanie, I'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, thank you, Callista. So in the next several slides, we'll discuss some notes, lessons learned, reminders, feedbacks for October finalization. As discussed in previous slides, in addition to downloading your October UTREX reports immediately after finalization, it is highly recommended to also download a copy of your examining file. This file contains finalizes student level data and serves as a valuable reference for future audits or when verifying previous finalized data, especially in cases of major issues or when confirmation is needed. Unlike the July finalization process, which prepares for rollover into the next school year, please don't delete or pause the daily collections after October and December finalizations. In accordance with Board Rules R277484. If you have paused the collections or are experiencing major issues that prevent data submission to UTREX, please contact the UTREX help as soon as possible. Please make sure availability or designate a backup throughout the entire finalization window. In some cases, we were unable to reach LEAs with incorrect finalized data. We strongly encourage LEAs to respond promptly to courtesy reviews to avoid significant errors during finalization. Please also stay informed by monitoring finalization reminders and announcements. Additionally, to prevent communication issues, please notify us of any personnel changes for designated UTREX contact person. Next slide, please. Please refer to the UTREX specifications documents whenever possible. Many common questions from LEAs can be quickly answered by searching through this document. It provides detailed explanations of common errors, warnings, and their solutions, as well as guidance on required variables, validation rules, and reporting codes for all submissions. During finalization periods, response time to tickets and emails may be delayed due to high inquiry volumes. To avoid delays, we strongly recommend consulting the UTREX specification before reaching out. For issues related to your student information system, please contact your SIS support team directly. We are unable to assist with SIS-specific concerns as we don't have access to your SIS or its related resources. Our visibility is limited to the most recent data successfully submitted to the state. Next slide, please. Okay, some reminders on daily submissions. As we prepared for the October 1 data finalization period in early September, we have observed that some LEAs were either not submitting daily collections to the state or had not promptly configured scheduled collections for the new school year, in this case, school year 2026. At the start of each school year, please make sure your LEA is collecting and submitting data to UTRACS on a daily basis. Timely and consistent submissions help facilitate smoother data reviews and allow technical issues to be identified and resolved well before the finalization deadline. Daily submissions are also critical for processes that rely on current and accurate data, such as assessment rostering. Establishing a strong data submission routine early in the year supports both compliance and operational efficiency. Next slide, please. Some notes on UTRACS overview. We saw some comments in the chat here. We addressed a little bit about it with some tips. The UTRACS overview may experience delays in updating, especially as the finalization deadline approaches, which is due to the high volume of scheduled daily and manual data submissions from across the state at the same time. So here are some tips to help managing this. The first one is finalize early when possible. Submitting and finalize your data earlier in the window can help avoid peak congestion. If early finalization isn't feasible, please be patient and wait until your submissions have fully processed in the overview before finalizing. In some cases, updates may take several hours or even a full day to appear. Troubleshooting. The second one is troubleshooting display issues. If you don't see overview updates after a reasonable wait, please try refreshing the page, clearing your browser caches, logging out and back in, or switching into a different browser. Sometimes simply stepping away and giving the system time to catch up can resolve the issue. Next slide, please. Okay, so we value your feedback. We're committed to improving the finalization process and making it more efficient. To support this effort, we'd appreciate your input on two key goals that we have. They are encouraging early finalization and enhancing communication during finalization. So two questions we would like to hear from you are, one, what ideas do you have for motivating more LEAs to finalize earlier rather than waiting until the submission deadline? The second one is, what suggestions do you have for improving communication throughout the finalization process, particularly ways we can better understand when each LEA plans to finalize? So please feel free to speak up here or posting in the chat, or even emailing us at dataandstatshelp@schools.utah.gov. We'd like your feedback. I think we have several minutes to discuss about it. Anyone have any ideas or suggestions? Okay, I don't see anyone raising hands up. Financial incentives for certified early. That is a really good point. Okay, I think that's all my slides. If you have any other suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks. Next slide.
Hey, Stephanie,
Yeah.
could we just go back to that last slide?
Okay.
If you guys wouldn't mind, we can put these questions as well in the follow-up email and in the chat, but we really would like to thoughtfully consider how to make the process better for both ourselves and LEAs. So if you guys have good feedback and don't have it right this second, we really want to be creative and think of ideas. Obviously, we can't guarantee that any idea we can do. But we did this internally as well, and we would like the LEAs to do it so that we can gather those ideas and hopefully make better change. And so even if you don't have a response now, if you wouldn't mind thinking about it, you can either email me or think about it and bring us ideas as you think of them. That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
It should just work like magic. Um, anyway, thank you guys. Sharing with the group, and this will have an attached, when I say attached, it'll have a link at the end of my presentation for a survey. So in preparation of that, if you could pull out your phone or when we send this out, the slides, if you could take note that there's a survey in here, we're trying to get some information, I'd appreciate it. So that's just kind of a heads up as we talk about the proposed severity levels of incidents. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So what's happening, and I don't know if the whole group remembers or has been following this or not, but in 2000, I want to say 24, it might have been 23, I don't remember the year, I apologize. But a legislative change came where the State Board of Education will be putting out a public-facing parent portal for incident reports. And as we've been reviewing part of this in preparing also for the contract and working out the funding for this and such, we looked at the incidents, and we've been, again, internally working through this process and trying to identify what's the difference of the severity levels of the different incidents. So for example, if you go to a school and you have a whole bunch of like classroom disruptions, is that as severe as, say, if you have a number of, like, say, robberies going on inside of the school? And so we are putting together a proposal. This would not impact you as an LEA directly in your data submission, but this information would be kind of vital or incredibly important for your principals, vice principals, and such who deal with the incident information and understand the severity levels that we'll be recording and reporting this information out. So here's the first one. Again, there's 4 levels I'll be presenting to you. The first one is just level 1 and the most serious. What we've done is we took a look at the Utah penalty. We then cross-tabulated that over with what kind of class was this a misdemeanor class or was a felony charge, and kind of went through all of the codes that we require. When I say codes, all the infraction codes that come in, and kind of grouped it into these severity levels. This is the first severity level right here. And I'm not planning on reading all of these. Again, there will be a survey at the end, and in that survey you can download the full PDF of all this information. But this is the first one, just kind of having you take a look at this. So most serious. So again, we're talking homicide, robbery, sexual harassment, weapons, and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, or level 2. Here's level 2. This is considered serious harassments, larceny, theft, trespassing, controlled substances, distribution, threat, intimidation. Level 3, if you can move to the next slide. Here's moderate. Again, this is putting alcohol, uncontrolled substances, tobacco, marijuana, drug paraphernalia, bullying, disruption, cyberbullying, fighting, abusive conduct, and such. And then the last one, level 4, this is minor. We're talking truancy, others, Again, others is kind of that interesting one. We're trying to get that cleaned up and really help identify, but attendance violation, defiance or disobedience, so on and so forth. So let's go to the very last side of this and put it up for everyone. So here is a QR code. If you wanted to take this now, you feel free. You can take this as many times as you want. I don't know why you would want to, but the survey should take you about 3 to 8 minutes to complete. There's also a URL link to go in to get access to this, but I hope, one, I can get enough feedback that if there's anyone who has a strong opinion or someone at your LEA can look at this and say, yeah, this sounds about right, or I think that we have questions and we want to give us some feedback. We really appreciate that. We'll leave the survey open for about 2 weeks. So all of next week and the week after that, and then I'll be closing that out. I will put the link in the chat for those who want to use it that way. Again, these slides will be shared out. With that, that is this part of this presentation. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide.
Hi, we just have an update from Child Nutrition for the SEBT program. Next slide, please. We wanted to say thank you to all of you that helped with the summer EBT data collection and reporting for our first year of implementation. Through your efforts, we were able to provide benefits to over 200,000 students, resulting in over $24 million in benefits for families where they could purchase food during the summer months for their children. The CMP department has a few observations about the data collection. This year, we do plan to clarify the opt-out reporting instructions. I think that those instructions caused a few hiccups in the collections, maybe weren't entirely very clear. We're going to try to tighten it up a little bit. We expect the data submission will be streamlined for 2026 because most of the data will be collected either through the UTREC, will be collected from the UTREC's S5 and S1 records. And as always, we appreciate quick responses for when we contact you for follow-up questions about the data. Next slide, please. The Department of Workforce Services and the Child Nutrition Programs Department would like your feedback on the first year operations. Are there questions you have about the program? What worked well together and report the data? What needs to be improved for 2026 data submissions? Is clarity needed for the S5 record collection or Qualtrics submission? We welcome feedback either in the chat or you can email one of the contacts listed on the slide, and these slides will go out to you, I think, in about a week. I don't know if there are any questions or feedback at this point, but I will monitor the chat as we go along. So if you have questions, if you want to tell us anything, now is a great opportunity, or like I said, you can send us emails. Next slide, please. UTREX will be our primary data collection for the 2026, and Qualtrics will be secondary collector. We know that for program year 2026, students must be enrolled in a National School Lunch Program school between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026. The other part to summer EBT eligibility is the summer operational period. And during that period, that is the period that a student can be determined free or reduced price eligible. That period will require approval from USDA, but right now we anticipate that eligibility period will be between July 1st, 2025 through August 31st of 2026. So that's basically over this school year and then next summer. Schools operating community eligibility provision, or CEP, and provision 2 in a non-base year do not distribute or process free or reduced price meal eligibility applications. Households with children enrolled in one of these schools have to apply for Sunbucks through the Department of Workforce Service application. Next slide, please. The list of schools that have been approved for community eligibility and provision 2 meal operations will be posted on Data and Statistics webpage soon. You can reference the UTREX specifications for directions about how to report students enrolled in these schools as economically disadvantaged. There is a declaration of household income form that's available for LEAs to use and for schools that use CEP or provision 2. This would take the place of a regular free reduced income eligibility application. And that is available on the SNP Canvas page. Food service directors have access to that page, and there's also a link here on the slide. Okay, next slide, please. Some observations about the S5 records that we're seeing coming in through the data collector. Right now, some students are showing eligibility dates outside of the current school year. So if you're filling out an S5 record for a student in the current school year and they are free reduced eligible, that date should be coming between the acceptable dates are July 1st, 2025 up through June 30th of 2026. And that is the free reduced price eligibility date field on the S5 record. Also, some students have S5 records, even though they are not marked as F or R in the economic disadvantage field. And conversely, some students with F or R marked in the economic disadvantage field do not have S5 records. So our request is that any student that is marked as F or R on the economic disadvantage field should have an S5 record filled out for them, but that needs to be with current school year free reduced eligibility information, and you shouldn't include eligibility information for students that are only eligible because of the 30-day carryover period. And then we also plan to add a new valid value to the free reduced price eligibility source field. The new value will be have a title of override. We had LEA feedback telling us that this would be a good option to have. And override should only be used in rare instances when a school authority fills out an application for a student. Next slide, please. And just wanted to say thank you again for all of your hard work in making this new program a success. We appreciate everything that you helped us do. Again, there are email addresses there. So I see a question that says, do the S5 records completely work now so that we don't need to send the spreadsheet again? That's a good question. We are working through, okay, so you can submit data through the S5 record. On our side, we will be sending some files to LEAs to have them check that the records that are coming through will accurately reflect the free reduced students that are in their school. So we'll do a little bit of data checking on our side, but currently we are expecting to be able to pull the S5 records probably around April to start with the new SCBT issuances for summer 26. There will be instances where an LEA will need to give us a spreadsheet. That might be for students that are preschool that aren't included in the UTREX uploads. There will also be private schools we will have to collect directly from. I can't think of any other instances where we would have to collect explicitly from the LEA except CMP cannot make the S5 record mandatory. We can't make it required because of everything else that needs to be submitted for the student. We can't jeopardize funds coming through for the LEA for any individual students. So we can't have the S5 record mandatory. That means, so we are, I don't want to say begging, but we are really, really requesting that you submit the S5 records for your eligible students. And basically, for LEAs that don't submit S5 records, we will need them to submit their data through Qualtrics or spreadsheet, because we need to be able to issue the Sunbucks to those students. Okay, then there's another question. If we don't have a lunch program but do have R marked, do we still need to create an S5 record? So you're talking about R as in reduced on the economically disadvantaged field. So it's my understanding that the instructions for the economically disadvantaged field state specifically that you enter F if a student is free or reduced eligible, and I think that it mentions under the National School Lunch Program, have to look at that again, or R if they're eligible for reduced price meals under the National School Lunch Program. Maybe we need to have some clarification about why you're marking R for a student if you do not have the National School Lunch Program in your school. So it's my understanding F and R would only be marked if a student was enrolled in a school participating in the National School Lunch Program. So maybe we need to have more conversations about that. There's Y is if they're not eligible for free or reduced price meals, then Y is the other option to show that they are economically disadvantaged. Okay. Yes, Stacy. So the IT department has created a report that CMP can use to pull the S5 records from the UTREX data from the data collector. And so we are able to run that report now. And it's looking really good. And that's what we're planning on using next summer. Okay, then I see that Principal Seal that you clarify that you're submitting Y for the economically disadvantaged, and that is what I would expect if you are not participating in the National School Lunch Program. Ashley's asked about CEP schools. That is correct. You do not need to submit S5 records for your students that are enrolled in a CEP school or a non-base year Provision 2 school, with a caveat. Logan School District, you do need to submit S5 records for your students. I know that you are running Provision 2 only on your breakfast meals, but on your lunch meals, you're still collecting free reduced price applications. So you would want to submit the S5 records so that we can collect that data for your students. But Ashley, that is correct. Students that are enrolled in a CEP school or non-base year Provision 2 school have to go directly to the DWS website to apply for Sunbucks, the SCBT benefit. Okay, and I don't see any other questions that are for me. So I'm going to turn over. I'm not sure who's next, but thank you. And if you have more questions or comments, feel free to put them into the chat for me. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Maureen Rushing. I am next. We can go to the next slide. I just have a quick announcement. We have a new assessment that we just started this week called the STAMP assessment. It is for our dual language immersion students in place of the Apple assessment. We are no longer administering the Apple assessment. Like I said, we just opened our testing window on Monday, and we have students that have started and finished assessments. There is a bit of a process for adding non-teacher users to the Avant portal for the STAMP assessment. They will need to be added by LEA district user by going to the Avant Utah help desk. We have a link on this slide that will take you straight there. Just click on the big red button that says request support and put your users in there, and they will be added. I know it's been a bit of a process for users, so if you have any experience with dual language immersion, you may have had a little issue this week. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Any questions about the stamp assessment or Avant, AVANT, they are the vendors for the stamp assessment, please send me an email and I'll help you. Thanks.
All right. Utah Fits All Scholarship. So your updates for 2026. Go to the next slide. So first off, I'd like to try to align everyone as far as with what's going on with cross enrollments. I know there's been a lot of cross enrollment information which has gone out to scholarship awardees. And that cross enrollment, again, is a process that we have from the State Board of Education to cross-check, again, their information with public education. So we're doing that. We're detecting those dual enrollments, and that this information then flows from USBE to Odyssey and indirectly currently to the LEAs and also to the parents. What we are updating this year is that we're trying to build in this process to be a little bit tighter, and I'm going to go over some of those details of what we're going to try to instigate still mid-year for further improvements with this. And again, this is Odyssey's first year. The previous year of the Utah Fits All Scholarship was with a different vendor, with ACE. So as we go through and you see those call outs, just where you're aware, if you weren't previously. One of the key things which we want to make sure is communicated is that when we start adding further transparency and communication about these cross enrollments, that in no case is this where the LEA should be disenrolling the students when we have potential warnings that could go out for you, or even when we have for qualified providers that are LEAs with UFA, if they're getting actual non-loading errors, that again, neither case do we want to have any disenrollments done by the LEA without directly getting that feedback from the parent themselves. So as well too, that there's going to be going over as far as with the response, and I'm going to talk about how to make sure that it's PII safe for the feedback to the parents, and also being able to share that back to Odyssey and USBE. Go to the next slide. So UFA involves multiple systems and people. So I'm going to try to walk through all this, as there's a lot of movement in this data, and trying to get to the point of accuracy. And it's an ongoing process that involves everyone and needs everyone's assistance to make it work. So we've got that the roster data comes from Odyssey to USBE. Then we've got the automated checks that we're flagging any possible cross enrollments. Then we share that information back to Odyssey, and Odyssey sends that information to the cross-enrolled parents of the district enrollment with a 5 business day resolution required. So they only have 5 days to allow the parent to go out and get this resolved if they're told that there is a cross-enrollment. And again, we're using the best resources that we have, even engineering resources, to be able to get the best level of accuracy as we can, but no system's perfect, especially when we're dealing with the high quantity of students that we have in the scholarship. So parents right now have that responsibility to contact the LEA to dispute if their child is enrolled at the district or not, and to have the district disenroll their child from public education courses and school enrollment if they find that they are, and they're choosing to use the scholarship instead of staying with public education. If the parents and or the LEA is unable to provide confirmation that the child is not an enrolled student at the district, the student will lose their UFA eligibility. And then at that point, they can stay in the public education. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, so cross-enrollment confirmation. So if the parent and or the LEA is unable to provide that confirmation that the child's not enrolled at the district, they lose that eligibility. They can stay in that public education, but if they do provide confirmation, if you can say this is a child that is not enrolled at our district, that you don't have to, give out any PII for that. You could say that, again, USBE will unassociate the UFA awarded student from the proposed UFA awarded student. And that should resolve, again, that conflict where they come off of that cross enrollment. If we can get that confirmation from the LEA that the parent has talked to you and that you've talked about who their student is, and if their student is the same student, and that or if they're not the right student. If the student's enrollment is valid, but they've been disenrolled per their request, then again, we should be able to receive that update through our daily enrollments from the LEA and no longer show that the students cross-enrolled once they've been exited, and that will then flow through to Odyssey. Go ahead to the next slide. So parents have the right and requirement to get that confirmation from any public LEA. This isn't restrictive to just those who are qualified provider to be able to provide UFA services. This, is the same concept across the board for just identifying if that is the right student and if they're in public education. So if the responses, are a complication, here's some examples that you can use for how little information we need to be able to move forward with this. So an example response would be that this is a confirmation that your child's information doesn't align with any enrolled students at your LEA name. Or this is a confirmation that your child's enrollment has been exited from your LEA name and will be updated with the data sent daily to USBE. So hopefully those examples help with any concerns that we've heard from some districts where Odyssey has requested, and they still have on their website right now, requests for PII information to go out. We're directing that is not something that has to be done for us to be able to hold them off of this cross-enrollment list, and that, please send that information over to USBE as well, where we can directly work with that, or if there's any problems or questions that we can work with you on any concerns that you have. Go ahead to the next slide. So again, what we have right now, those cross-enrollment shared are just going to the parents, and the parents are required to reach out to the LEAs and try to get that resolved. The other outreach that we have is that the cross-enrollments are shared directly to LEAs who are UFA qualified providers through those level 2 errors, which we've talked about in previous meetings, where it checks if there's any other school that is currently offering public education to the same student that they're offering UFA services to. Go ahead to the next slide. So further enhancements, we're looking to add a warning message integration. And this is, again, open for feedback. So as I say, we're providing cross enrollments to be automatically shared to LEAs through the existing level 1 LEA errors as a warning. So again, a level 1 error is when it's specific to just your LEA. Level 2 errors are when we cross-check other sources as well. So we'd be bringing that in to where we check that SSID list that we have listed for our cross enrollments and be able to give you immediate feedback per day through like a warning that you would receive to be able to know if you have any potential cross enrollments, giving as much visibility as we can for this. The awareness of those identified students is primarily, again, for the purpose of being able to work with the parent and to be able to provide better feedback for the parent, or to not have to do a lot of investigation on your side. When you do have a parent that reaches out and says, the only information that I received is, first name, last name, date of birth. And as many of us are aware, that's not always enough to be able to accurately identify the student. So this helps you know who we're referring to, who we align them to, which in the majority cases will have those, again, first name, last name, date of birth already matched. And if it's not an exact match, then there's other contributing data points that have been able to indicate to us that this does appear we've got the right student. But again, if there's any issues with that, that's the feedback that we'd like to be able to get, and to be able to establish a strong method of communication to get that improvement, and also to be able to train in our system to be able to reduce that count over time. So again, your confirmations should not have any PII, and that you can include myself on any emails, or you can also open a help desk ticket for any questions or concerns with being able to respond to any parents. But please anticipate that. And once we have those level 1 errors implemented, this should help with knowing who might be contacting you and who they would be referring to.
Hey Cliff, is it an error or a warning?
It's a validation error, technically, if it's a warning or a non-loading fatal. But just to be clear, it is just a warning. It's not going to prevent loading.
Okay, thank you.
I do see something came in on the chat of, is there a student list for each district sharing what students received the UFA grant? We have a lot of UFA students that want to take driver's education at our high school, and the parents need to pay and fill out a dual enrollment form, but we're having issues because the state is telling us use one thing and we need some guidance. So let me see if I can address that of, there's not a student list where we would provide all UFA students to LEAs. If we detect a cross enrollment, we are suggesting that we can indicate that, but we're not proposing providing all public students to UFA, or vice versa, all UFA students to all public LEAs, just when there's a cross enrollment in place. So if you have UFA students, as you're saying in that statement, I'm assuming that you are a UFA provider, and you'd be looking to UFA to be able to provide you your list of enrolled students who have been awarded and are using their marketplace or other means to attend as far as with, again, a list, can't really help you out with a full list. Does that answer your question, Karen, or can I help with that further? Feel free to come off mute if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, that might be a little easier than typing it. This is Corrine from
Sorry.
Gwinnett School District. Our issue is if we don't enroll the students in Aspire with the dual enrollment that are taking the special that are taking driver's ed, they're not insured with the state risk when they drive the car with the instructor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a interesting position. I do know that there are some legal areas where, you know, there are requirements for coverage for UFA
Yes.
students that are attending. And this sounds like that would probably still fall into that. But what you're saying is that you're, because of a timing issue, you're trying to make sure that you get all the students insured as quickly as possible for the driver's ed, or can you clarify that?
Yes, so when they drive with the instructor, those 6 days,
Mm.
they're not covered on our risk insurance, our state risk insurance while they're in the driver's ed car. So we're having to enroll them, you know, and into like dual enrollment as 1/5 of a student at our high school until they've taken the course, and then the UFA parents have to pay for it, of course. But is that the right way to do it, is with dual enrollment form?
I don't believe so. This isn't a public education dual enrollment. It should be treated like a homeschool or private school, but um, I don't know if the dual enrollment is the right answer for that.
Well,
This might
my
take some further conversation, though.
yeah, because we have to dual enroll them to get our money, you know what I mean? And then,
Well,
but if
let me
they're
just
not
clarify. Dual enroll indicates that they're taking public education, in which case they're not eligible for UFA.
I know, but the driver's ed class is public education class at our high school. And if they don't enroll, then they can't drive with an instructor because our state risk is saying they're not covered on the insurance for the car if something was to happen.
Yeah, we can take this offline, but initially, I'm going to say if they're in public education courses, and if this is a public education course, then they can't be a UFA student. Any courses that are offered from an LEA who's a qualified provider have to be through the isolated school number of the 993, as was mentioned earlier. And those same students are not allowed to have any public enrollment at the same time anywhere in the state,
Hey,
at
Cliff,
your school or another school.
I think maybe part of the confusion is when you're thinking of dual enrollment, are you thinking of the LEA offering services where you can have a homeschool enrollment or private school enrollment in UTREX and have it set to no membership, school record no, and that doesn't cause problems?
Okay.
So is it correct that a UFA student can be enrolled in school 993 with no membership, school record no, and that does not cause problems?
If they're in 993 and only 993
tomorrow
across
and
the
Monday.
state,
Okay,
there's no
perfect.
problems.
Okay, that makes sense because we are enrolling them as non-attenders, but we still have to enroll them as a dual enrollment for the state for our risk control, I think. That's what
Okay.
I'm asking. We're getting two different.
I would think that the 993, because it's now considered an LEA or a school, a UFA, and that's where you would put your UFA, would that not cover them? Because it's still like putting a private or homeschool 990 or 995 underneath your LEA.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for helping.
Yeah,
answer
thank you,
that.
everyone.
Let me see if there was another question here before I move on. I think that I'd answered this one of, is this just a warning for UFA students? What's being proposed that hasn't been released yet for being able to share those cross-enrollment validations as we get them and detect them, again, would just be warnings. And again, would not indicate or allow for disenrollment based off of that. It would simply be for transparency and the ability to better support the parents when they reach out to ask you about helping them see if their student is going to your school and if they're still enrolled at your school and making a decision about that. All right, go ahead to the next slide. All right, so again, a lot of what I'm saying is going to be very repeated, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm just drilling this through, but these are the key things which we've had for concerns and questions. So I'm going to be a little bit repetitive still of that. We do not want to disenroll without direction from parent or guardian. Any notification, level 1 or level 2, we're not asking LEAs to take action based off of these warnings or errors. That's not what's being requested or what's being directed. So we do want to make sure that you are comfortable with providing the parents feedback without exposing PII. And I would ask that anyone who does have any concerns with that, please reach out to me directly and let's discuss what that concern is to where we can, again, support all students in Utah, including those in this choice program for Utah Fits All. And again, the last piece, just to include that feedback with Odyssey, without the PII, and with USBE. Go ahead to the next slide. So specifically for LEAs that are UFA qualified providers, again, this has also been mentioned with Lista earlier, that the key things which we need to make sure are understood as that these students need to be separated out from other schools. And there is legislation that is requiring this direction, and that's why we're going this route and why this has been engineered as it is. So they do need to be sent with school number 993. And they also need to not have any membership because that does risk them getting out onto other reports and causing complications. And also their school of record should be no as a non-attender. That is the expectation for all of the students or UFA qualified providers sending students to the state with the services that they are offered. So again, this is a required piece for all of the LEAs who are offering these services to send those students. And that this isn't a new qualification. These aren't new processes. We have been discussing this since March, and you're welcome to refer back to any of our previous LEA meetings for further details about this. There's been some evolutions which we've been able to come up with for improvement, but the core concepts have been the same since. And just that last call out there about how the UFA students are eligible to take the extracurricular activities available to private or homeschool students. So making sure that that is aware for these qualified providers. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, and as a helpful visual, to try to, see all these processes as we can say them many times through, but sometimes a visual is the easiest way to kind of know what's happening, when things were happening. And I do have in green here the processes which aren't in place yet, but that we would be looking to build into the process, of adding in these level 1 warnings to where LEAs are more empowered and don't waste as much time potentially trying to identify who the parent might be talking about when they reach out. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, so I'm gonna work on catching up with any questions that anybody has, and just leave you with these call outs for references if anyone needs them. Does anybody have any questions which I've missed from the chat? Or any that you would like to bring up now? All right, well, please feel free to reach out to myself or to our help desk with any questions which you do get, and we will make sure that we can get them answered as best as we can, or take them to people that can help us get you answers. Thank you, everyone. Go to the next slide.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. I don't have a lot to say on this, but we can go to the next slide. So the short summary is that we expect to have the final grad rate ready probably mid-November. So we have not run the final grad rate yet. That's because, as I said earlier, the data was available officially to use as of yesterday. So we had to wait on that. And then additionally, we try, when possible, to wait on the last historical updates getting done, if there are updates that will affect graduation data. So even though those requests were put in late and they may not have cleared fatal errors, we can at least have those affect your grad rate data when possible. So we had the last ticket of historical updates finished also yesterday. So we would anticipate that we'll probably run the final grad rate in the next week or so, and then we'll review and then we'll send it out to LEAs. You can go to the next slide. One quick note though on historical updates before I talk about the final grad rate review. Just if this is helpful, if you're getting requests declined or we're reaching out to you with questions, here's just some helpful things that I've kind of learned over reviewing those historical updates for years. We always say that they're due 2 weeks prior. And the reason for that is because they're very manual. It's not just a simple, we can change it and it's done. It goes through multiple teams. We have to put in tickets. It's a very just manual, tedious process. And so when an S1X is able to be done, we will decline the historical update. And that's just because you can do an S1X easy, get it done. You don't need to wait on us. So if you're consistently getting historical update requests declined and we're saying you can do this with an S1X, let's figure that out. You can reach out to me. I always am happy and grateful when LEAs reach out before putting in a historical update if you're not sure. Because then we can save you from wasting time if it's just going to be declined. And we still will have to review it whether it's declined or not. So please, if you have questions on that, like when do I do an S1X, when do I do a historical update, I am more than happy to one-on-one go over that with you. Another point is how can we learn from this year or a prior year if you had to submit, a whole lot of historical updates. And so if you've been in that boat before, you know that I'll reach out and I'll just kind of say, hey, I noticed, you had 15 historical updates all kind of on the same issue. Is this a training issue? Perhaps it's with registrars or your SIS is defaulting the end of year code and those don't get looked at in time. So when that happens, let us know if it would be helpful. Again, we are happy to help train at your LEA if people are having a hard time understanding. If it's a one-time thing, that's fine. And then again, we can learn from that, and then next year we don't have that happen again. But if the same LEA is putting in 50 historical updates every year, then it starts to kind of be a problem. So we just want to help you save time. And so please let us know if we can be of assistance in training on that. Another note is if you're just putting them in late, meaning past the 2-week deadline, maybe that is an indicator that you're not you personally, but your LEA needs to start reviewing grad rate data earlier. We send out Move It files in early August, so there is quite a bit of time before that deadline, which is kind of mid-September. So whatever the reasons are, I know that there's lots of processes, but if those updates don't get put in until after the deadline, maybe it's something that you need to look at internally to try and get those in earlier when possible. We know there's always, exceptions. And lastly, we do understand that there are times when an S1X doesn't work. It should, and I may even, email you saying you should have done an S1X, and then you're like, it didn't work, I tried. So in those cases, please let me know, call or email. That way, when I review the historical update, I already know, oh yeah, they tried the S1X and it didn't work for whatever reason. And then we can just get that through faster. Because we do acknowledge that this process is here for a reason. So if an S1X isn't working, we want to make sure to get that update done. So hopefully that can be helpful. If people are still having questions regarding historical updates, please reach out. I'm happy to answer questions on those. Next slide. Going back though to the final grad rate. So once we run that, David and I are responsible for running that. We will send out Move It files again, and those will basically have the final data. And that will use what you finalized in October, and any historical updates or any S1X updates that were done between July and October, that will reflect those updates. We will also have the graduation rate preview report updated, and that will also reflect the final grad rate data. Again, we're aiming to have that done mid-November. There's not a set date, but we will email you once that is ready. It is considered final to the extent of, if we make an error, which, hasn't happened in the past when we've run the final rate, but if for some reason you find something that looks wrong on our part, we do give LEAs a window to review those files before we publish anything. And so you would just want to make sure and review that quickly and respond quickly if that is the case. Otherwise, that is considered final. If a student just didn't get updated, unfortunately, we're past the point where we can do anything about that. And we usually, the timing on publishing the final grad rate
You
is
don't happen to know where
December.
classroom 3 is, do you?
What is the class?
Okay, so we will publish the final rate on our website. We will also update, we have Tableau dashboards, both at the state and LEA level that we will update. We also write up a grad rate report. And so all of that will be available between December and January. We publish the state rate data first and then the LEA and school rates. But again, you will be seeing that in mid-November. It just won't be published until later. All right, any questions on the final graduation rate? And again, this is for cohort 2025. Okay, if you do think of anything, you can reach out to myself and or David. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. Okay, this last presentation is really just one slide of important dates. So you can go to the next slide, please. I know it sounds far away, the December submission, but when you start looking at the dates that need to happen before the finalizer, it really is coming up. And so that's why we're announcing it now. So the finalized deadline for the December 1 data submission is Monday, December 8th by 5 p.m. The reason it's on the 8th is because the 7th falls on a weekend, so you get an extra day. Again, this is similar to October. It's your data as of December 1, but you have a whole week to get it finalized. And as we just talked about, the deadline for historical updates is always 2 weeks prior. And so this year that falls on Monday, November 24th. We don't tend to see too many historical updates in December, but if you do have any, just make sure those get in by that date. And similarly, the SSID merge requests, we ask that those get put in ahead of time, just because those are also a manual process, and it gives our teams time to go through the tickets and ask questions if it's not a straightforward request. The next LEA data meeting will be on November the 20th. So this, I believe, is the week before Thanksgiving. And so that is where we will train and go over all the important data points for your December 1 data. So if you know that you won't be able to make that meeting, just make sure to try and review the email that we send out later with the slides, just so you know what you should be thinking about going into that data submission. A lot of it is heavy on Scram data for December. We're planning to start the courtesy data reviews a little earlier. So Monday, November 17th. And then hopefully we'll just get those done prior to Thanksgiving. And that way everyone will have their data review with plenty of time before the finalizer. And the finalizer will be turned on December 1st, which is a Monday. So that will give you a full week to get your data finalized. And we will send out an email on Monday the 1st just to verify that it has been turned on. So those are some important dates to keep in mind for the next month or so. Are there any questions? Okay, well, I think that's all I have regarding that, and I think that's also the end of our meeting, but I might be mistaken.
No, that's right, Callista. That's the end.
Hey, great. I'll turn the time back to Erin.
Thank you. I mean, really, thank you everyone for participating today. Hope you have a great weekend. again, thanks for all the work you've done. We'll be around for just a minute if any questions pop up, but other than that, have a great day. I'm guessing no one has a question. Okay. Nicole, let's go ahead and shut down the Zoom meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Right. See you guys.